I can see you. I can see Gina and Cheryl and Kathleen. And do we have Sarah on the line?
She just muted herself. She's walking into the building, she said, when I was just talking to her.
Okay.
Hi, yeah, I'm in the hallway right now.
Oh, that's fine. We're fine. I had trouble getting on this morning. I'm at Bethany Beach, very cold and rainy Bethany Beach. And our folks from all across the Northeast are arriving. I was trying to find a spot where nobody would see me so I could not be interrupted here for the next hour. I see Sarah coming in. I think we have everybody. That's okay. It's Monday morning here. Hopefully the sun is going to start shining, or at least it's going to warm up down here. It was torrential rain at Bethany yesterday. Was it in Newark yesterday as well?
We had a couple of bouts of pretty hard rain. Yeah. I was talking to my parents who were down there, and I was saying it sounded like they got what we got Saturday night. We got hit pretty hard Saturday night.
Well, hopefully my house in Bear is doing okay with the rain. I had thought I had a gutter problem, and I had the gutters cleaned out, and hopefully I didn't get rain in my French doors. I was getting rain in before, so hopefully got that straightened out.
Yeah, hopefully it's all right.
Back, I won't have a wet living room. I think as soon as we get Sarah with us, we'll be good to go here. There she is. Can you, and I assume you all can hear okay there? Oh, you're working on your sound. Ah, you don't have sound. You can hear, but we can't hear you. Well, that's going to be a problem.
I wonder if one of you calls in, or will that create an echo? I never know.
Create an echo. Are any of the guys in across the hall that can do this?
Or try Sarah's laptop?
Yeah, Sarah will call in. Okay. Yeah, because Sarah was on the phone. I don't know how much feedback you're going to get with you might have to monitor, Cheryl and Kathleen, you may have to mute your computer so you don't get feedback if you're using the phone.
There you go.
Okay. Kathleen, how's your back? Oh, you can't tell me. You can't tell me. It's better. It's better. Okay, good.
You got it on, you got it on speaker. Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
It is echoing.
You have to mute your.
Yeah.
It's down at the bottom of your screen.
Cheryl's muted.
Oh, Cheryl is muted.
This computer. They're both muted.
It's because Cheryl can hear us, and so can Sarah. It's because it's coming from the computer and the phone. So Cheryl, turn your audio off.
Your audio off on your
Is
computer.
that better? Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So we can hear you, and you can hear us, right? Are we all good?
Yes.
Okay.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, yeah. Well, technology is great when it works, and it's working good enough. I think that we can have this conversation. So thanks for joining us first thing on Monday morning. And I'm sorry for the short notice in calling this. But let me just give a little bit of background, and most of this is time for discussion. So you're good. You guys, we can see you all. That's great. And thank you. So thanks so much for doing this on call. So a little bit of background, how we got here. We've been working on the SNAP-Ed proposal, which is really due in another week. Here it's due on the 15th. And trying to, as you know, reorganize things, how we're going to redo the SNAP-Ed proposal. I'm sure we've talked about some things, and Sarah, we talked about some things with SNAP-Ed and how we would do that. And we thought we had some things in line. And then we've had some other things that have come up while we're doing the SNAP-Ed, and it just raised issues about the staffing piece and how we can get it all done. And one thing in particular has been this opportunity from the Department of Public Health to provide time for the FitBiz. And they have they're having a proposal that would be a 5-year commitment to 1 day a week for an agent. So buying out an agent's time for 1 day a week to do the FitBiz work, which is really PSE type of work in each of the communities. And so as we looked at this whole alignment and how we're doing this, there just continued to be this tension about how do we do statewide stuff? How do we do this statewide with the staff that we have? Do we have this laid out in a way that's going to work? In some sense that we really didn't, this tension between the county needs, knowing the people in the county, knowing the communities, and with our well-connected communities, which is the Robert Wood Johnson, the same issue, trying to do some things statewide, but it's really about the community. And recognizing that this policy systems and environment work that we're doing is really about the community, the communities that we're doing, as is the well-connected communities, and maybe needing to relook at all of this and knowing that we have just this window to do this when we submit this grant if we change anything with SNAP-Ed. The other thing that came that's a factor is that I've had an opportunity to do these 5 site visits of other states that are doing the well-connected communities and how they're staffing that and how they're doing that. And one of the things that they're really doing is using their SNAP-Ed folks who are already working in the community, and I don't mean the nutrition assistants, I mean the agent staff. The agent staff who are in the communities doing SNAP-Ed are also doing well-connected communities. It makes sense. They're working in the communities, they're working in those coalitions, they're working with the agencies, the WIC, the same people we need to work with on SNAP. They're being able to make these coalitions and make connections to refer clients. And of course, we don't know where all the SNAP-Ed's going to go. We can only write for what we know in terms of what that's going to be. So it really became a question whether we really have this staffing piece right as we got this SNAP-Ed piece written. And also, I'm concerned about writing in enough time for UD to be really able to do it. I think, Cheryl, you've had some concerns. You know, the whole staff has, we've talked about this, whether we have this right. So I have another proposal to put in front of you this morning of another way we go about doing that. And it would involve both of you in significant ways in a change of doing this, but I'd like to test it, test this idea on you and see what your feedback is. We think we might have a way to get at this. And so one of those ways is to reconsider how we're aligning ourselves to do the SNAP-Ed work and to do the well-connected communities. So the conversation is around having Gina provide overall leadership for well-connected communities, which she's also doing, but also for the PSE part of SNAP-Ed. That she would provide the overall piece because they're very much aligned and they're very much similar kinds of work with working in the communities with these with the community and the networks and doing that work. That would then free up Nancy to do the work that would be in Sussex County and provide leadership for the Department of Public Health FitBiz piece for that. And then aligning our SNAP-Ed work that we'd have each of you, and Cheryl, this would, and Sarah, both affect you, in that we would place each of you with responsibility for SNAP-Ed and FNAP, but in the county. So for example, Cheryl, that might look for you like being in Newcastle County, and you would be responsible for the SNAP educators and those who are doing FNAP. It's the same people. You'd be responsible for those. Instead of being statewide, you would be responsible for Newcastle County nutrition assistants who are doing SNAP and FNAP there. And then you would also take on this coalition work with the well-connected communities and the coalition work that we'd hope that we'd have through SNAP and FNAP with those local organizations who we can refer our nutrition assistants to for this. We're both doing PSE work and doing connections to the community. And Sarah, likewise, we would have you're already doing the coalition work in Kent. But then this would take supervision and responsibilities for the nutrition assistants who are in Kent County. I've talked to Kathleen about this, and Kathleen would probably help some with that supervision to get you started, and because you haven't had that experience in working with them necessarily. You've worked with them, but on an aside, not in a supervisory role. And so Kathleen has worked with them and to work with that. And similarly, Nancy would do this in Sussex County. So we would basically have a statewide PSE SNAP Ed team with Gina providing overall leadership for that. And then each of you taking a county to provide leadership for SNAP and FNAP and the PSE work in that county. And then the well-connected community work with the coalitions, because the SNAP and the coalition work, we think, overlaps in terms of it being the similar groups and similar people. And Sarah, you're shaking your head. I think you have worked with this coalition. Can you see that being an overlap?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that way we don't have people pulled into some things you're doing statewide, some things you're doing county, some things, we've focused that more. So that's a proposal that's on the table. And then among the four of you, meaning Gina, Nancy, Cheryl, and Sarah, the four of you, we would then have to have some areas of expertise that you might bring to the SNAP and FNAP crew. So for example, Nancy should provide leadership to the FitBiz thing, write the proposal, and then provide leadership because that's what she's been working on. One of you will need to pick up maybe key responsibility for what the television things that we need to put in the health centers up. That's part of what we're doing SNAP. Somebody would need to provide support for the, not doing it all, but for the Webineer system. How do we train the nutrition assistants and whatever in the Webineers? And I don't know if anyone has that training. Cheryl, do you have that yet? Have you worked with Sue at all on that?
As far as Webineers, I have, checked data, put data in. The nutrition assistants themselves work in Webineers to enter their own data. But as far as the administration of it, haven't, worked with that.
Right. So that was something but you probably have more knowledge than anybody else that I just mentioned of that system with Sue Glenn. Now, of course, Sue will be here through January, and as she said, she'll be as background on some of these things. This changes significantly what we, how we are, how we have proposed to do this. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Sue because she's been out on vacation. So I just want you to know I haven't had that conversation at all yet with this. And I'd like to do that, but I can't do that until I think we had this conversation until she got back from vacation. So this would give a county focus to you and to your work. Sarah, this would probably mean you would be doing less statewide in terms of your educational programming, but you could. Everybody's going to have these speaker bureau things, and you'll have areas that you speak and do on that. This would also mean, as we do with the whatever we decide with the volunteer program, and I said to Kathleen as we talked this, we just don't know what we're going to do with the volunteer program yet till we see this curriculum in a couple of weeks, till we lay this out. But one of the opportunities then is to have management of the volunteers in the county then would be part of your work that would go with that, because that would be connected to this. Again, it would have to be working as a team. It really would have to be the Gina, Sarah, Cheryl, and Nancy team, sorry, that would be really working as a team. And then we also then, so that's a statewide PSE well-connected communities piece. And the four of you working as a team, working on those things. And then we'd have the statewide
Hey,
team.
excuse me, Michelle, can I just clarify, have some
Sure.
clarification? As far as FNEP and SNAP-Ed management, earlier we had talked about that I would have the supervision of the group. So that is what will change for both FNEP and SNAP-Ed. And
Yes.
also FNEP is the piece that, I am primarily responsible with the direct, education and the curriculum. Would all of this get divided out as we work as a team, or would some of these pieces that we had talked about earlier stay in place? Thanks.
So yes and no. I think the supervision and responsibility for FNEP and SNAP individuals would be divided out. So you would have responsibilities for those in Newcastle County. But Cheryl, you may want to be the one who provides overall leadership for what curriculum we use, because you know the program best. So you might say, this is the curriculum. And when it comes to training, we still would bring them all together and probably do training all together. And so you may be the lead person in that. Sarah may take the lead on these TV, and I don't know, you all have to talk about where you need to be lead. The details of how we would work it out as a team, I think all four of you would need to get together and say, well, I could take this piece, I have more experience in this, somebody else would take this piece, and work out the details of how you would do that. So I'm laying out general ideas, but I'm very open to the four of you sitting down and saying, how do we do this? I've also said to Nancy, she'll need to be co-PI on this. Gina will be off on leave about the time this grant, the new SNAP and SNAP goes into place. And so she has the grant management experience on that side. So she's going to need to do some of that. We would still put in place, which is part of what we have discussed at this point already, putting in a support position to the statewide SNAP piece that would do some of the support Gina and could really support the statewide piece. And we still have Liz within, and I'm not sure, Cheryl, you would have to add what all pieces Liz does related to FNEP, besides the BERs, which I know she does for SNAP, what all she does for FNEP, but we still have her written in as well. So keeping that piece in place, but adding another support person, we were going to add it to Nancy. We'd probably at this point add it to Gina to support this overall leadership for SNAP. And that's monitoring the budget and all the subcontracts and that whole piece. We'd need somebody to do that because that's just a full-time support job with that. So the other thing I was going to say is then on the statewide piece, so that's the statewide SNAP piece. It's statewide, but it's county focused, community focused, maybe, county focused, but with community in that. That enables us to grow the well-connected communities as we have to add communities. So then you would identify what communities in your coalitions are most likely to be the next. And so, for example, Sarah and Kent, if Milford is interested in the FitBiz because Purdue's funding that, then let's choose that for the next community and Kent to do well-connected communities, and you can do the FitBiz, which counts towards well-connected communities. If you see what I mean about the overlap and the resourcing of that. Then the statewide piece that Kathleen and Maria and others would be doing would be Kathleen would continue to provide overall leadership as for the food safety and for nutrition kinds of things. We'd also have Maria doing the financial leadership, and we really need to explore how we can tie in financial well-being to the work of these community groups. So poverty, particularly the issues of poverty and unemployment and those kinds of things. And I want to explore with Maria, this is down the road, this is not for now, but I do want to explore long-term whether we go into the SNAP-Ed funding that's around unemployment that several states have already picked up. It's like SNAP-Ed, but it's only for, it is focused on the finance side, and whether we bring that into place. And that's down the road, but positioning ourselves in a way that we could do that. Again, that would come to offer into these communities, these coalitions. It would be a direct connect to the work that we're doing. So Gina, Kathleen, you've been involved in the conversations. Let me stop there and you add to this from what I've missed and other key pieces of this that might add any further clarity.
I think you've explained it very well. I think that probably Cheryl and Sarah's brains might be swirling about what does this mean in their day-to-day work. And, you know, this is the time to ask those questions, or, you know, in the future, because it's going to take time for you to digest what we talked about today.
I have a question. I haven't been involved in coalition work in Newcastle County, so that would be something new for me that I would need to know through the work that you've done, Gina, and others. What is
that entails?
formed? You know, I do not know who's the players,
Right.
where we meet and when we meet, and how steady is this coalition. I've heard different things. But the
Right.
Sussex is the most strong,
Right.
and then you're developing this in Kent. Where are we at with Newcastle County? That would be good for me to know
Right.
stepping into this.
Right. Right. That's definitely something totally different from what was proposed in the previous.
But like I say, I don't know
with
what the
his retirement.
coalition strength is. up
Right.
North. I do know Wilmington being Wilmington, we have so many players with the same population going for the same, you know, that's always been a piece of that's problematic. But has it been strengthening and changing and, you know, growing? Where are the monies going? You know, like I know we talked about HKD and that group, but if that's also the same players that are in any kind of coalition, how loose or tight is that up in Newcastle County that I would be, you know, stepping in?
Well, and
Gina,
I think.
do you want to speak to what we can say about the coalition work in, because you have been involved with that as well, and so has Karen. And let me just add that one thing I didn't say is that there is a need for us to intersect with the youth component more greatly than we have as well. And so that's another conversation we've had with Doug. But, you know, I'll let you talk about the coalition piece.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Cheryl, I think your questions are all pretty much on point with what I would have if I were you. And so one of the unique scenarios we're in Wilmington, specifically in the Newcastle County area, is that we do have 4-H as almost the lead right now. So Karen is still going to be providing her time to the work. And actually, I'm going to a meeting right after this to flesh out more what that would look like with our partners. And so it's a very small neighborhood focus that we're now looking at in Wilmington. And so I think that you and Karen would be working kind of hand in hand, and it would be more from a connection between the youth piece and the adult piece. So it wouldn't be, because as you mentioned, there's so many players in Wilmington, we've been trying to figure out the best way to kind of insert ourselves, if you will. It's a little bit different than Sarah's scenario in Kent County, and a little bit different, and very, very different actually, than Nancy's. So I think for you, it would almost be a longer transition, if you will, into the bigger coalition-based work. So it would really be around almost a project, is the way I'm looking at it, where you and Karen would work hand in hand. And what that looks like, I'm hoping to know after 10 o'clock today.
And I think that's a good response as much as we know on that, Cheryl. And I would add that Maria has been very well connected to the different organizations in Newcastle over the years, just as being there. And she can provide some of the expertise also to help. So for example, she's already working with the market, and has a grant from the county for that market. Well, that's really PSC work. We tie that into the nutrition assistance and some others, and that's not necessarily coalition, but she has, what I'm saying, she has knowledge of some players that can be helpful, I think. And I think Kathleen is the same, Sarah and Kent. She has knowledge of some of these organizations that you're trying to work with, and knowledge of the nutrition assistants, and can, so we're not trying to separate the team that, gee, Kathleen does this, and, you know, I think actually we'd be more of a team in terms of, and having, instead of, well, I'd hope we'd have a sense of team, that we would contribute what each strength can bring to that. The coalitions are less developed maybe in Newcastle County, and we're working, because Wilmington is very complex, and the healthy neighborhood has actually had difficulty determining the coalition and the right structure, and then we had this change. So I think our plan has always been, we'll work with a small neighborhood community versus a major Wilmington coalition. And what that comes over the years will remain to see, but it'd be starting in a small community as a starting point. But obviously getting to know those organizations that we can connect with SNAP and FNAP in a very significant way. So I don't
So
have,
what?
go ahead.
Okay. So I know before what the percentage change was going to look like, but what does this now mean? Is it still gonna, because before I was gonna go from like
Okay.
20% to
Yeah.
5.
Yeah. So I'm working the numbers. So part of it is when you ask that, then it's salary and grant funded pieces. So the numbers so I don't have the final answer because I need to talk to you, and then we need to work some numbers to do this. But we're thinking that maybe one starting point is 25% FNAP, 25% SNAP, and then the rest state funded for each of you. And so with then this Department of Public Health grant buying out for the next 5 years, 1 day a week of your time out of the state dollars on that. That's what I'm starting with as the starting point. And again, what the other states are doing, so the time that you're putting into SNAP and FNAP also counts towards the well-connected community time, if that makes sense. But I haven't been able to finalize the numbers yet to tell you that that's exactly the percent, but that's basically what we're looking at. The exact percent will have to be it's a finance piece. And that's why
Right.
the critical nature of this timing, because we have to submit this grant and we have to have those figures in there.
I have a question. Nancy's not on the call this morning.
Yes.
Is she already familiar with this plan, or?
Yeah, we've talked to her about that and just couldn't make all that work this morning. That would have been a good thing. And I'm just not sure whether we just missed a beat here with this or not, but she is supportive of this. I have had a conversation with her the end of last week. She is actually, Nancy was very concerned that how we had, she came to me last week and said how we have designed, she's very concerned about, we had the proposal submitted for SNAP and said very concerned that we just don't have this alignment in a way that's going to work for her. So that's where this started, really. I don't want to make it a Nancy's thing, but it is part of the conversation that we've had all along about how does the statewide piece, how does their expertise line up, how does the PSE piece, well, and quite frankly, I've been having it with Gina having this conversation with Gina in a separate way about how we're going to do the well-connected communities and how we're doing that. And it was finally, we really need to bring, as I did the site visits and then said, we really need to bring all these pieces together. So it's really just coming together with, and then the Delaware Public Health piece came in with that. And this all came in like last week. So it's just been, it's all very recent. This is how recent the conversation is and how we're going to get this work done. And feeling like what we had wasn't going to, was stretching everyone maybe and not aligning folks. Was the sense. So proposing this is this a better plan? It's not what we talked about, obviously, but is this a better plan given what we know at this point in time?
So then would the nature of the nutrition assistance kind of like the way that they meet be up to us to decide?
The four of you,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I would think you'd want to do some training to get, I don't think you'd all want to do individual training. I mean, they come together once a month. Cheryl, am I right on that? Once a month they come together? So,
Once a month.
Yeah, so I think we need to relook at that and what that training needs are, and particularly around this PSE piece. They're doing these modules now, and how does that look, and how do we align them with this PSE work that we're doing, and what role do they have? Cheryl, I'd need to look to you for the expertise in FNAP. There's rules about what they need to do. That's different than PSE, how many clients they need to have, what we need to be meeting. And I'd really see you being the strength in the team in terms of what we need to be doing in FNAP and communicating that across the team as well. We have to stay true to that as well. And that's a balance. So the team would really have to come together and bring each of your strengths to that, but I would assume that you'd do some training jointly, and maybe it'd be a topic that we'd even have Kathleen come in or have Maria come in, and we do some of this finance training, or we do some of this nutrition training through them. It wouldn't be just up to the four of you, but the whole team, and we can say, what are the training needs we have, and how do we bring them into that, which we haven't done so much of in the past, but that could be that. But the four of you would have to probably line out and determine what those needs are.
And that's going to be something very new and different, I think, as far as understanding the nitty gritty of what they need and things like that. I think that's going to take a lot of learning in the beginning. And maybe what could happen is in the supervision of the nutrition assistants, there could be kind of a divide and conquer. Like if this comes up, it's this person's response, rather than all three of you duplicating the exact same type of supervision minutia, you know what I mean? So that's something to think about too. It's really sitting down, and I think just like we don't even know what we don't know.
Right.
So sitting down with Sue and saying, okay, just
Good.
pull out thing that comes up in the course of the year. I'm sure you know more than anything, but and then figuring out, okay, even if somebody in Newcastle County, but they need X, Y, Z, that's part of this supervisor would be the one you went to. I mean, that's just an idea of how to do it, rather than being so much duplication in each county with that supervision. And plus, you don't want to divide that group. They work really good together, and they enjoy each other's company, and they're kind of like a support group for each other. So really making them still be one through those monthly meetings and that kind of thing, and having some consistency with that, I think, is really important.
Especially because there's just a lot of fuzziness for me as far as how they communicate with Sue.
Right.
How is that done generally? Is it by phone and, emails and things like that when she's handling and having to fight fires that I am not?
Right.
What's going on that I have no knowledge of?
Right.
And that's definitely, there's something else that's out there
Right.
that we do need to find out, what is the general, program for the whole year?
Right.
How do you do this monthly? How do you do things weekly? What kind of things are you dealing with?
Encountering and everything. Yeah, definitely. And they're going to be different in each county, but more the same than different, I think. So I think that's something where just kind of a fact-finding day, something to understand, and both ways, from Sue to you all, and then from the nutritionist.
I've gotten more of because I've coached them.
Okay.
So I get kind of more of the background information.
Right. That's great, because you have that relationship already, and you've done that, gone through that exercise with them.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I do know that, so I kind of have that background voice, but
And then
Right,
I
and
have longevity.
what goals you've have them working on and what kinds of things. So pulling that all together, I think, will be a very positive thing. Having more people involved with this, I think, could be very positive in terms of all your strengths and working with them and strengthening them as a group. Let me just say the time frame. Obviously, we can't put any of this in place till SNAP would be funded and we'd have this new grant. The good news and the bad news is the bad news is we have to get this proposal in right away with these options considered. The good news is we would have till October to do some work on this and have conversations and start to flesh this out a little bit. So we'd have some months before we actually have to do it. Not a lot, but some months here to have further conversation.
So how would it go with those couple of months when Dr. Snyder's still here? Like,
So October through January. So,
yeah.
so I'm thinking that what we would do is, and I'm exploring this, is that we would not have her time written to FNF and SNAP for that period of time, that she would be the support to us. So I'm working with base budgeting to have her 100% salary on base budgeting for those months. I've already gone to CACAB and asked her if I could do that. That doesn't mean she isn't helping or tutoring or, providing background, but that may be what her role is and not be doing it so we can get this up and running, the finance piece, and really see how that's going and starting October 1. Because Sue's with us. I know that she's very, she wants to see this succeed. Now, she doesn't know about this plan, and I don't know how she'll feel about this plan because this is different than what she has and has put in place and kind of her legacy. So I'd like the opportunity to talk to her about this before we all proceed with her on this. And it's a little struggle for me because I'm down here at Bethany and I have these directors all coming in behind me here, and I'm here through the week. So I just need to get some time on, next week to talk to Sue about this. But meanwhile, we all have this grant that needs to be submitted prior to that in terms of working out some of these things. So, so that would be my thoughts about Sue. That she would be a resource to us, and we would help her. And certainly there's some things that we need her to do, like put in this year's webinars, getting that report in. And then, Cheryl, we'd already planned that you would learn what she was doing with that, so I can see that we continue to do that, and you'd learn that aspect of the webinar system and the reporting, or someone. It wouldn't have to be you. Maybe it can be someone else. I just think you know more than anybody else does about the FNF side of things. But among the four of you, we'd have to find somebody to do, to do that piece, to have Sue do it, but to understand it. That's one of the transitions we need to make. I think, Cheryl, that had been on your plate. We can talk about who's the best person to do that. I'd be happy if you do, but I think the four of you can decide who's the best to do that.
It's just all a learning curve, Michelle, because there's so much that has not been released over the years. I've been a support person, no doubt, and I've been here, but there's been a lot that there's just not any other knowledge of.
And communication.
I
I feel your pain, Cheryl.
Right.
Really.
So it's just going to be a learning curve.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, I'm going to take one day at a time, and I can't do to myself what I've done in the past, just pushing myself long, long days and trying to take it all and do it all at once. So I just know I can't at this juncture in my life. So I'm going to just take it and do whatever I can, the best of my ability. But there is going to be a large learning curve here. I have never really worked with budgets other than when I did weekly operating reports with Marriott, and that was 20 years ago, and supervision 20 years ago. So it's been a lot of hands off with that piece.
So do you, Michelle, do you anticipate them having to work with budgets very much in their
I will
county work?
with
Well,
the FNF piece, yes.
but I'm thinking, are we talking about that shifting to Gina?
Well, yeah, I think we're talking about this shifting to Gina and to having responsibilities by the support person that we're putting in place. But I do think then there will be a budget amount these NEA, the nutrition assistants have, we'll have by county, the grant will have so much by county to spend on food and, resources, although we can balance it across the state. But I think that is a shift, Cheryl, in terms of being able to shift some of that so that we have that person doing some of that work. That doesn't mean you don't have to help them manage what's acceptable purchases and what's not, at the county level. And you all have to learn that. I don't know that. I don't know who knows that other than Sue. And do you have that information, Cheryl? What's acceptable purchases on FNF and what's not?
So,
Commodities.
the commodity food program.
He's never really
I don't
said
know anything about
to
that.
me.
Yeah.
I've asked many years, but
So just for clarification,
Cheryl had originally, the plan was for her to take over the whole FNET budget and be in charge of that. So is this being shifted to Gina?
Yes,
The overall, okay, so understand that that will not be your responsibility, but except for the pieces that Michelle just said, the county, you know, making sure they stay within their budget and for the nutrition assistance and things like that. And the other thing that Cheryl and Sarah are just bringing up is the commodity food deliveries and, you know, how that stuff is ordered. Yeah. You know, that they get those food deliveries that they can disperse out into the community, and the logistics of that, because I know Sue always ordered all that product, and
she liked to keep her hand on that because she could order for needs for camps and needs for projects. So I think that is why.
Maybe that would be one of those things that one of you takes care of statewide, whereas one person takes care of those monitors at the state locations, one person. So maybe rather than that being done, that doesn't really make any sense to me to be done chopped up.
no,
But those are the kinds of things that
yeah,
there needs to be a conversation with everybody, just kind of like a dump of everything that we don't even know, right?
I think there's a lot more than we think.
Really. Yeah. So, and I'd be glad to help with anything, you know, whatever I can do to help you all be successful with this plan. That's what I'd really like to be able to do.
I know we started out by saying we don't know what's happening with the volunteers, but we still have this core group of great volunteers. I feel strongly about not leaving them just in the lurch here with this.
Well, they're not
the time to devote to doing so much of that as there had been or will be. So
right.
That's what's little bit disheartening for me, because we've really grown that program since 2009. And
and I think
a little bit about
that the great core of volunteers will still be the great core of volunteers.
Possibly. They do need the stroking. I notice that people fall away when it's not in their environment. So.
But there had been talk about me taking over the Newcastle County volunteers. So in this plan, you're saying that the county people would still be working heavily with their volunteers.
well, again, what I've said about the volunteer piece is that we need to work that through. We need to decide what we're doing, and that's high level change that I have said. What I have said is I don't know what we're doing with the volunteers, and I think we need to see what this new curriculum is, see what we're going to do in Delaware. I am very concerned that we cannot support two separate volunteer programs. I will say that. I don't think we can support two separate volunteer programs. We don't have enough staff resources. So I think we need to see what this new one is that we must do. The only place we must put this new program into place this year is in Sussex. So maybe we look what could go, we pilot something in Sussex and see how that can go, and then we go from there. So I'm not prescribing how we do the volunteer program at this point. I don't know.
Right. And just so that the volunteers we have in place aren't confused either, as long as they can keep helping and doing what they're doing at this juncture until we get other parameters in place that work with well-connected communities.
I will say that
keeping them stable afloat. There needs to be that leadership in that. So.
And it's my sense that, and I do know from the Well-Connected Communities training that it's using volunteers to do direct programming, being comfortable with what they're doing and doing some direct programming and to build on our capabilities. So that is part of it, the future of our master volunteers. And we've talked about, Gina's talked about they might have different areas of focus. Some of it might be more nutrition, some of them might be more health, and we can design that training to do so. And there might be different areas that each of you take in doing that. So I would say that master volunteer thing is ours to design, but I'm not prescribing that at this moment because there's too many unknowns at the moment.
I think one of the unique opportunities that we have with the volunteers specifically is that we don't have to do anything but pilot it in Seaford next year or Sussex County or this year, but that's really, until May of 2019. So I think where that could potentially set us up is looking at then going into next year. So, not this October 1st, but the October 1st after that of SNAP. How do the volunteers and the nutrition assistants align in our SNAP plan as well? So I think that we have a lot to learn in this next year from the alignment of the SNAP, the nutrition assistants, the master food educators, and the well-connected community volunteers. And that we just need to give ourselves enough space and time. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow, and kind of allowing ourselves to kind of almost not drag it out, but allowing ourselves time to kind of adjust at each juncture. So let's take one thing at a time. Let's start with the SNAP thing. Let's move into the volunteers, kind of how do we make sure that we're not taking on too many changes at one time so that we're all overwhelmed and that it's not working the way that we kind of had anticipated. So from the volunteer perspective, I don't see that really taking a shift until after probably the summer of next year, I would think, just because of the alignment of timing in terms of when we need to have stuff done versus when, we, in an ideal scenario, we might want to have stuff done just so that we can, again, give ourselves space. But again, I mean, that's just kind of what's going on in my head.
I agree. I think we move forward with what we have. We have volunteers in place. We do that. And then we sort out how we're going to go forward from here. So we give ourselves a time to sort through this. And I think we really get a plan here in place. Then we really need to start working with Sue to get to know some of these pieces that we don't know. It's really time to start transitioning these areas that you're raising that I know nothing about here either, but we do need to transition those and begin that transition.
I have another question now on the opposite side. So you did say since the percentages will be changing, and then that might mean less of the statewide programming. So would that also be something that would kind of be left up to the FCS group to figure out how we want to work with that? Because the way we are now is pretty much I have my own programs that no one else teaches. Mm-hmm. So, and I already have.
I think we'll still continue to have areas of expertise in your statewide programming. So you're not having to learn 15 different programs that you have your area of expertise, but you might have to do them statewide kind of thing. And especially if these coalitions the Speaker Bureau continues to pick up, then it's going to have to be that. I have said we might have to reduce what we have on that Speakers Bureau thing. Or we might have to at least have volunteers who can take some, if we're going to keep that long list, then maybe some of them have to be able to be taught by volunteers. And we train volunteers on some of those specifically. But yes, Sarah, I was thinking, if that answers your question, that you keep your area. You're the only one who's done why can't I think of it? I need the program mindfulness. I need it.
We already have 6 people interested in 5 sessions for the end of the year going into the next school year. So that's just, and they're in Sussex. So that's just what I'm worried about, how that takes up a lot of travel time, and if it's something that they want the whole 5 session program, that's a big chunk of time.
So just to clarify, Michelle, I think that what the plan would be is that you would not just be working in your county and your community.
Yeah.
You would still be doing those programs that wouldn't be FNEP, SNAP-Ed programs. So yes, that would.
And I think Sarah just voicing that same concern that we do a lot of those things that people just do not know what we're doing under the surface.
Right.
I'm going out, tomorrow. I mean, you just do what you have to do when you don't have the volunteer help.
Right.
And that builds based on the year. The calendar year, the September will pick real up again in October, November. Mm-hmm. And then, it goes through its ebb and flow. Mm-hmm. But that is all happening too.
Right.
And that's, how do you divide and conquer that?
So Sorry, Cheryl. Can I ask you guys a question? Does that, like what you guys just said, like when programming picks up and like what the staffing needs are related to it, does that exist somewhere? Or is that something that we might be able to kind of like, I don't mean like, I don't want to put work on anybody, but like, is that something that we have like a good idea of? Because I feel like that would be how, as we're talking about like the transition from like, learn what we need to learn from Sue. I think we also need to learn from one another. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, like so Sarah, what do you see as some of the challenges related to this? Well, one of them might be that, it takes you 2 hours to get downstate and you have a 5 hour five sessions or, whatever that may be. So maybe, kind of as we think this through, would that be something that you feel might be helpful to kind of put down so we can kind of, I'm thinking, between not just the four of us, but the FCS team, how do we troubleshoot? Okay, well then we know we don't schedule any SNAP program during this time frame, or whatever that ends up being. Or Sarah, make sure that your FitBiz is scheduled on the same day of a mindfulness training, or we could just kind of troubleshoot, like how would this work? What would it, pen to paper, what would it really look like? Not theoretical. So my initial question, sorry, that was long-winded. My initial question is like, does that exist anywhere? Like almost like when we know things pick up, or by our calendar? Is that how we do it?
I don't think there's been any consistency about it.
Okay.
Yeah, just by having like Karen Summers in place, working on things up here, she and I talk, we know, we have our Google Doc laid out, so we know, what is coming once a month, and we know how to try to get help, and whether we do or not.
Okay.
Different.
Okay.
So that the statewide
But
programming is something we need to talk about the whole thing. And so Sarah, in this case, maybe we need more than one person who can do mindfulness, because maybe you can't cover all the mindfulness and the other pieces. So maybe we need 2 people who do mindfulness. Or maybe we need trained volunteers in mindfulness to do some of that training.
We might have some that would be interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
We do need to get our volunteers working, not that they aren't, but aligned with some of these programs that we know that we're offering that we need to have done.
Yeah, and I wasn't saying that, like, I don't mind traveling and I love
Right,
teaching
yeah.
the program. It's,
Mhm.
I'm thinking more if I am going to be supervising people in Kent County, that already adds on to travel time for me,
Right.
and that's something else that's different. And just, I want to make sure balancing my time is going to be good. Like, makes
That's
sense.
fair. That's fair. Absolutely fair in terms of what we're doing here. Well, do we have
I
enough?
think it's understand the workings of, to be able to understand the workings of the SNAP-Ed and FNET more, and really, I think there's fear in not knowing.
Yeah.
I think that's what we might be facing right now. There's fear in like, well, I have no idea what I don't know. So it's like,
Not sure.
but once we understand and know, and we can work together to check off those
Right.
responsibilities.
Right.
I think we have a really good team.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why there's some things you don't know is just genuinely and honestly come by. Sue has been here so long,
Yeah.
knows the community, knows what has worked, what hasn't worked, knows her staff,
Right.
and so she has just worked that way. And
Mhm.
so she picks and chooses how something should get done and
Mhm.
who is the best person to do it. That's what I've seen in
Right.
9 years.
Without necessarily communicating the background information about
Right,
that.
right, and so then, but it does go. We make
Right.
It happen, but it's tricky doing it that
Yeah.
way, and there isn't transparency.
I'm worried about how the nutrition systems are going to be.
Well, overall, it's gonna be
It's gonna be
difficult
different.
because they have always looked to her for the leadership.
Right.
And so they're gonna either, longer, or they're gonna stay, they're gonna go, there's gonna be some of that, and too, from the coaching that you've done, other things that they may be feeling about it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
certainly they've been pampered a little bit.
Yeah.
They have been loved, and they've been given quite a bit.
Yeah.
That don't know if we can supply that.
Right, right. And this is a great time to make those changes.
That's right.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm not,
right.
and I'm not sure we need to feel that we need to do it the same way either. I mean, I think we have to have them grow in their professions as well, and some of them may welcome it, and some may not, you know, so there's been a lot of hand-holding that's been done, and this is a growth opportunity, and some may or may not be up for the challenge here, so to speak, and others may be. I don't know them well enough to know that. But I think it's going to be different regardless. I mean, if Cheryl was just taking this on, it was going to be different too. I mean, Cheryl, if you were doing this all statewide, it's going to be different than it was. There isn't any way around this not being different as we go forward. So listen, I'm conscious of the time. I know Gina has to get to another meeting, and so do I here in terms of hosting here. I mostly what I need to know is, are you comfortable enough in concept that we have to make major changes to the SNAP proposal if we're going to do this? Are you comfortable with me working with Nancy to move forward with thinking about, that's my main worry right now that has to get in, which is major funding to do all this. And that with me reworking with Nancy some of this and working the personnel piece out and how we make that happen and getting the funding aligned. Is there enough comfort for me to do that work, knowing then would have to spend between now and October 1 really figuring out the details of this?
Yeah, that's fine. I just say as long as Sue can get included as soon as possible.
Yeah.
She'll want
Yeah.
to at least be in the know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely want to do that. This is not without Sue in this, but I felt like I needed to talk to you before I even talked to Sue. I just felt like that was the right order because I felt that way. And now I'm down here all week is my dilemma. And I can try and connect with her, but I'd rather talk to Sue in person if I can. So I just honestly, I don't think I can do this till next week to talk to Sue about this. I can send her an email and say we're talking about some changes and I need to talk next week and can we get a meeting set, and I will do that. I won't not try. I will do that. And then, but you can throw this on me to have this conversation with Sue. Is that okay? Knowing that I can't do that till next week, really.
Get really busy this week because I might get asked. Actually, if you send that email, so I'll just be busy. Getting my roller skates on for camp preparation.
So Cheryl, I wasn't catching all that, but you're saying you're really busy, so it shouldn't be a problem. Is that what I hear you saying?
Stay really busy, get my roller
She's
skates
got
on
to
for
be
camp.
evasive.
And be evasive a little bit if you are going to
Oh,
send
be
an
evasive.
email.
Okay. Well, I will talk to. Yeah, and I don't want to be secretive. This isn't a matter of being secretive. I just want to have an opportunity to sit down and have this conversation. Cheryl, do you perceive that this will be? What's your perception of how this will be for Sue?
I'm sorry, was that a question?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, how do you think Sue will go with this?
How do you think? Sue, yeah, any of you.
Your gut. You know, what you were saying is that, you know, this is a change and completely in the legacy that she's created, so it might be chunks. You know, otherwise maybe she's feeling ready to let go, but
Yeah.
it has to happen that she is opens up about all things that are done that she's been doing under the surface that we don't know.
Yeah. I think what we do know about it, she really does value the team being together as one. So I think that is one thing that she would
Want to continue.
Yeah.
And she wants you to be very successful, so she's going to do whatever she can to provide you with information to help you be successful moving forward. I mean,
Yeah. I'm not worried about that.
yeah.
Yeah. But we do need to begin the transition. We need to. This really forces this transition with more than just you, Cheryl, and all that. Okay. Well, thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for your willingness to consider this. I'm actually excited about it. I'm excited about, and there will be tension with it, but I just feel like we do have we've been dealing with this, how splitting people up and dividing all this out and not having a plan, and this seems more planful, if that's a word, in terms of alignment. and that made me feel better that we're in finding that. We've been struggling to figure that out. So it seems like there's more integration here of how we would have assignments, and so I'm hoping that that's a positive thing. So thank you for your time to do this, and I'm sorry to just jump off here, but I need to. But I will pursue this and go forward with that, and I'll have I need to have a conversation with Nancy. Again, I wanted to hear from you all, not necessarily Nancy on this. I know that she can be on board with this, so it was more a change for you than for her. I've already had numerous conversations with her last week, so just about her concerns, whether we do this DPH thing, not, all of that. So I will get back in touch with her as well this week. So thank you all very much. Proceed to do everything you plan to do this week, and stay tuned as we more to come. So thank you. And I am reachable. I'll be watching my my phone, and I have internet, so I certainly can be reached for anything that needs to be reached. We're just hosting these director folks here this week. So all right, thank you all very much. Have a great week.
Thank you.